Firstly, I want to thank the 720,772 British men and women who signed our petition demanding the mass deportation of illegal migrants. A policy position that has moved from the so-called mad fringe to the acceptable mainstream in less than 2 years. But the question is no longer whether Britain has a problem. We know the problem. It's been well documented. Now we need solutions. Restore Britain is the first and only political party to publish a comprehensive plan, not just...
Well, there you go. This is GB News Originals. I'm Emily Carver. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And do leave a comment. Let me know what you think.
To stop future illegal immigration, but to remove those who have no legal right to remain in this country. All of them, every man, woman and child. They must all be deported, and a Restore Britain government will do exactly that. I'm not going to stand here and outline the problem. We all know what's wrong. I'm going to tell this Parliament exactly how we can remove millions of illegal migrants. As we have seen time and time again, deportation is routinely frustrated by a carefully designed maze of legislation, international treaties and legal challenges. A Restore Britain government will repeal or amend the domestic legislation that prevents swift deportation, repeal the Human Rights Act, withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights, and remove the Refugee Convention from domestic immigration law. It would also introduce what we call the Great Clarification Act, reaffirming that we in Parliament, in these buildings, have the final say over immigration policy, allowing Parliament to overturn court rulings that obstruct the democratic will on immigration. Not activist judges, but elected politicians, held to account by the British electorate. But legal reform is just the start. That simply sets the scene for the most ambitious set of deportations ever seen. The real question is this: how can we remove all of those with no legal right to be in Britain? The answer is by making illegal residence impossible to sustain, as we call it, the hostile environment. No legal employment, no legal tenancy, no access to public services, no banking facilities. That single reform becomes the backbone of our immigration enforcement. Make life so incredibly uncomfortable and unsustainable that many will simply deport themselves. Employers must face real-time right-to-work checks. The gig economy, construction, hospitality and other sectors with persistent illegal working would face regular audits. If Uber Eats, Deliveroo and the rest are found to be employing illegal migrants, they will be fined, prosecuted, and even shut down. The farce of young Sudanese illegal migrant men delivering spring rolls and pepperoni pizzas on mopeds in every British suburb will end. Government itself must lead by example. Every company bidding for public contracts would have to demonstrate strict compliance with immigration law before receiving any taxpayers' money. ESG, but for mass deportations. Housing enforcement would change completely. Every landlord would be required to carry out right-to-rent checks at the beginning of every tenancy. Those who knowingly rent properties to illegal migrants would face severe financial penalties, and persistent offenders could face asset seizure and prosecution. HMO owners who impose gangs of feral illegal men on quiet British villages will be prosecuted. Public officials who knowingly place dangerous and unvetted migrants near schools and nurseries will be sent to prison. Homelessness legislation must also be amended so that illegal migrants are no longer recycled through local authority housing systems, but instead enter the immigration enforcement process. We will not house illegal migrant tramps, we will deport them. It's really that simple. Healthcare would no longer operate as a loophole. So-called safe surgeries must end. Proof of lawful status must become a requirement for routine NHS access. Illegal migrants in hospitals will, as they should now be, reported to immigration enforcement. We are not evil. Emergency care will be provided, but they will be then deported as soon as it's medically safe to do so. Across government departments, the departments will finally begin sharing data. The Home Office, HMRC, the NHS, local councils, the DWP, banks. Instead of operating in silos, government will work as one system to identify those with no legal right to remain. The full power of the British state will be directed to implement this one policy, mass deportation. Financial enforcement would become another powerful tool. Banks would verify immigration status before accounts are opened. Existing accounts without lawful status will be frozen or closed. The hostile environment measures will force out hundreds of thousands. A concurrent programme of enforced deportations will be implemented alongside this to remove the rest. Restore Britain proposes a major expansion of immigration enforcement, recruiting thousands of additional officers, drawing on former police officers, military veterans, and experienced investigators. A specified recruitment campaign for military veterans will be implemented, drawing former soldiers into field enforcement roles. Detention capacity would be expanded dramatically, including the use of purpose-built detention facilities capable of holding thousands awaiting removal. Commercial airlines will continue to be used where appropriate. Dedicated charter flights would become routine. Military transport aircraft would also be available where operationally necessary. Time will not be wasted. Specialist detention facilities will be constructed near airfields to hasten the process. Britain will negotiate far stronger bilateral return agreements.
Britain underneath. Rupert Lowe says he's got the proof, and the date is 2039. Right. Before we get into this, I need you to actually sit down for this one. Because what Rupert Lowe put out this weekend is the kind of thing that's designed to ruin your Sunday. His words, not mine. And once you hear the detail, you'll understand why. If you're new to this channel, welcome to Britain Underneath. The place where we don't just read you the headline, we go and check what's actually sitting underneath it. So do us a favour, hit subscribe now, because you're going to want to be here for the follow-up on this one. Right, let's dive in. Here's what Rupert Lowe posted. He says he's come across evidence proving the government intends to keep accommodating illegal migrants in Britain all the way through to 2039. He calls it an absolute scandal, and he says he has the proof to back it up. According to Lowe, the Home Office has gone out to the market advertising for what's officially described as a long-term transformation programme, covering asylum support and accommodation services. Essentially, he explains, this merges all the existing separate contracts into one single system, something the tender itself brands a transformative re-procurement. Lowe lays out exactly what the successful suppliers will be expected to deliver. Accommodation that's designed to meet a wide range of needs and support what's termed community integration. Accommodation management aimed at maintaining a safe and responsive living environment. A transport service running every hour of every day with what's described as professional drivers. A sustenance element providing cash support and payment cards. A safety and security function. Audit and assurance work, meaning ongoing inspections to flag where improvements are needed. A service user assistance strand, supporting people from the moment they arrive right through to integration into local communities and helping them access local services. And finally, a well-being and safeguarding requirement, with specialist safeguarding staff mandated as part of the contract. Then Lowe gets to the dates, and this is the part he wants everyone to sit with. The contract, as advertised, is set to begin on the 1st of September 2029. It's due to run until the 31st of August 2036, with a possible extension stretching all the way to 2039. Lowe's reaction is blunt. He says this proves the arrivals are expected to keep coming, and that what he calls a rotten establishment is planning to house and support them until at least 2039. He uses one word to sum it up: traitorous. He then sets out, in his own terms, what a government led by his party, Restore Britain, would do instead. Every person who arrives in Britain illegally would be deported immediately, regardless of age. Every person already living in Britain, having arrived illegally, would also be deported. Officials and politicians who signed off on these long-term contracts would face investigation and prosecution where appropriate. And the asylum system itself, in its current form, would be abolished entirely. No more asylum seekers processed under the existing model at all. He says Restore Britain has published what he calls the most comprehensive deportation policy this country has ever produced, and that the party has, in his words, done its homework. His closing line is simple: stop the boats, remove those here illegally, make Britain safe again. That's Lowe's case, laid out in full exactly as he's making it. Now, quick pause, because if this is landing for you and you want to keep getting stories broken down like this, without the shouting match either side usually turns it into, subscribe to Britain Underneath right now. It genuinely helps this channel grow, and it means you won't miss where this story goes next. Right, let's actually unpack it. Here's what's worth sitting with. Lowe is right that the procurement document exists, and he's right about the dates listed in it. Long-term Home Office contracts covering asylum accommodation absolutely have been structured with extended timeframes before, and this one is no exception. That part isn't in dispute. Where it gets more complicated is what those dates actually mean. A contract that runs, with a possible extension, to 2039 is not necessarily a government promising the world that the current system will still look the same in 14 years. Long-term public sector contracts are drafted this way for entirely mundane reasons too. Commercial stability for suppliers, reduced re-tendering costs, contingency planning. Governments change, policy changes. A contract can be shortened, renegotiated, or scrapped entirely by a future administration, regardless of what's written into today's tender documents. So the leap from "this contract could run to 2039" to "the government has decided illegal migration will continue until 2039" is Lowe's political interpretation of the document, not something explicitly stated in it. That said, here's the bit that should give anyone pause, whatever your politics. Standard commercial practice or not, it's genuinely difficult to look at a government tender planning infrastructure and staffing for asylum accommodation running into the late 2030s and not ask an obvious question. Where exactly is the plan to end the situation that makes such a contract necessary in the first place? If ministers are, in parallel, telling the public that stopping the boats and reducing arrivals is a policy priority, a contract of this length does sit awkwardly alongside that message, at minimum from an optics standpoint. That tension is real, regardless of which side of the debate you land on. And that's really the story here. Not just what Rupert Lowe claims, and not just what the Home Office tender says on paper, but the gap between the two. The public messaging around returning migration numbers to more manageable levels versus a procurement document quietly built for the possibility of a system still running well over a decade from now. Whether that's cynical establishment planning, as Lowe argues, or just standard civil service contract writing that nobody thought to frame more carefully, is genuinely something reasonable people can disagree on. But either way, it deserves more daylight than one procurement notice buried in a supplier portal was ever going to get on its own. Quick one before we close out. Take a breath, stay informed, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to Britain Underneath. This channel exists purely to keep pulling documents like this into the open, so you don't have to go digging through government tender portals yourself. Every subscription genuinely helps us keep doing that. So here's where we leave it. Rupert Lowe has laid down a serious claim, backed by a real document, with real dates attached to it. Whether that document proves a 14-year plan for continued illegal migration, or simply reflects how long-term government contracts are routinely written, is now a live political argument, and it's one that isn't going away quietly. We'll be watching closely to see how the Home Office responds to this, and what comes of it. Make sure you're subscribed to Britain Underneath, so you're here when it does. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and we'll see you in the next one.